You know, we always hear this, life is unfair. It's true, right? It's so unfair. I mean, we can spend all day long lift up the examples of how life is unfair. Except one thing, in terms of getting us into problems, life is fair. You know, we all go through problems, tragedies, setbacks in life. No one can escape from trials and tribulations in life. That's life. Some of us have been through it. Some of us is right now in it, or some of us will go through it later. I mean, it may be something simple like not getting the promotion that you hoped for, something like you didn't qualify for a loan for a house that you always wanted, and maybe something more serious. You just lost your loved ones, or your marriage is in trouble, or your health. You just got diagnosed with terminal illness. In those tribulations in life, it stirs up our emotions. Emotions of abandonment, emotions of dismay, depression, all sorts of emotions. We are human beings, emotional beings, yeah? And we've been studying the book of Psalms, and we are into this second week of this series called The God of Emotion. God of Emotions. So we're going to deal a lot about our emotions, how we deal with the emotions. And last Sunday, we studied about how to have joy in our hearts in spite of all the, circumstances, all things happening in our lives. And this week is abandonment, how we deal with abandonment when we feel alone and estranged. And that's what this study is all about. So, when tragedy hits, and we often ask ourselves, why is this happening to me? And those whys, all the time we focusing on why, and we may not get the right answer. We probably never gonna get the right answer from this side of eternity. When you go to heaven, you will know exactly why that had happened. But over this side, we don't know. And sometimes the answers we get, we don't like it. So it's more helpful to move on when you are in trouble. Instead of focusing on why, you can start with why, right? And then, what should I do next? Because this happened to me. What should I do next? That's what this week's Psalm teaches us. Psalm 22 is famous because our Lord Jesus quoted the first line. Do you all remember the first line? We just read, my God, why have you forsaken me? This psalm was written 900 years before the crucifixion. But this psalmist, that's why we can tell this psalmist David wrote in his time in line with the Spirit of the living God. And he went through this persecution in his mind, in his life. And this is, the book of Psalms are like a faith journey, prayer, confession, and all that, supplications, all that. But this one particularly is a kind of a prophecy, what our Lord Jesus is going to go through. And in that, David started with, my God, why have you forsaken me? And then he moved on to what he would do. So let's learn from this study. And I've called it 3 R's. And please remember this. First of all, it teaches us to release. Release and refuse and reclaim. Okay, you guys are very smart. Hold these 3 thoughts. And first of all, release all your emotions to God. Not to everybody else, but to God. Cry out to God. And Psalmist said, my God, why have you forsaken me? And here he used my God, Elohim. That means deliverer. You are my deliverer. And if you keep your promises, if you activate who you are, why I still in this predicament? Why haven't you delivered me from this predicament, this situation? You know, have you ever experienced that when you are way out there, do not committed to the Lord, or you was just half and half, your life was so easy. And once you committed to follow God's plan for your life, God's will for your life, sometimes you ended up where you don't even want to be ended up. Sometimes you get so disappointed and you get into more mess. You know, a priest who's John Powell. John Powell is one of the greatest Christian communicator. And I heard that he often wakes up in the morning feeling difficult, feeling that he cannot face the day. You know, he has such a difficulty to face what's coming of the day. So he said he wakes up and prays like, my God, I don't feel like being a priest. I don't feel like being town pump available to all who come and demand of me. You know, he was telling God, I am following your will. I am following walk with you. But the stress that I have, the demands that I have, it's too hard to bear. He's just throwing at God and crying out to God because he knows our God hears our cries, our prayers. You know our God hears our prayers, right? He answers our prayers in how many ways? At least 3 ways, yes and no and what? Wait. Okay. And wait. And I heard a new one.